Hey folks, this is Vince with Dad's Gaming Addiction, and today we're going to check out Biblios. It's a game for 2 to 4 players for ages 10 and up, with the average playtime being about 30 minutes. So this game is a lot like For Sale, in the sense that you'll be acquiring cards during the first phase, and then using said cards to acquire more cards during the second phase. Only in this case, you are this abbot that is trying to build this illustrious library of sorts to appease the bishop. And just like For Sale, you're going to be getting cards in phase 1, and then I'll be using those cards during the second phase to try and get more cards. And the person that is able to acquire the most victory points across 5 different colored categories will end up winning the game. The kicker is that the colored categories will change in point value as the game is played. So without further ado, let's take a quick look at the components and see how the game is played. Okay, so here's a very brief look at the components. You have a large deck of cards here, and inside that deck of cards, you've got a few different card types. You've got this gold card here, and it comes in different values. Basically, when players get this, they'll be able to hold on to it for the second phase, and then use this card to get more cards. You've also got this sort of like church card that will adjust the die on these different dice here. You've got brown, blue, green, yellow, and red. Like I was saying at the very beginning of the video, there are 5 different categories. And these dice represent the point values for that particular color. They start out at 3 at the beginning of the game, but with these cards you can adjust them up or down. You've also got these numbered cards of the 5 different categories. Basically, players will be trying to collect these in order to earn the most points of that category. Whoever earns the most points of a particular category via these cards will win the die, and whatever number is on the die is the number of points they'll actually get. I know it's a little confusing, but it makes sense once you actually start playing the game. Speaking of the die and the dice and everything else over here, you've got 5 different dice: brown, blue, green, orange, and red. Again, 5 different categories, and this board here is just called the scriptorium. Setting up the game is very easy to do. The first thing you're going to want to do is go through the deck and remove so many cards. The card types and the number of cards that you remove will all depend on how many people are playing the game. There is a chart in the manual. After you do that, you're going to shuffle this up and put it as the draw pile here. Then you'll want to set all of the dice into their particular category slot and set them at a value of 3. So the game itself is broken up over 2 phases. You've got the gift phase and the auction phase. During the gift phase, players will be receiving cards for free, whereas during the auction phase, players will be needing to spend some cards in order to get cards. The gift phase is pretty simple. The active player at that time will go ahead and draw a number of cards from the deck equal to the number of players plus 1. Those cards will be dealt face down, and they'll be resolved one at a time. So let's just say that we're playing a 2-player game. You want to draw 3 cards like so, and you're going to resolve them one at a time. Whenever the player draws the first card and looks at it, they're going to decide, okay, where am I going to allocate this to? They have a few choices. They can allocate the card to themselves, they can allocate the card to their opponent, or they can allocate the card to the auction pile. Each destination can only have 1 card, so each player and the auction pile is going to have 1 card at the end of this. So let's just go ahead and just resolve this one. Let's just say that he wants to put this one into the auction pile. Now it's worth noting that whenever this card comes up and someone actually owns it, it is resolved immediately, and the die here are adjusted appropriately. For example, this says -1 here, so the player that actually wins this or gets it on their turn will have to stop the action and then adjust a die of their choice. If it is put into the auction pile, nothing happens until someone actually wins it at that point in time. So let's just go ahead and put that in the auction pile here, and this auction pile will grow over the first phase, and that will lead into the second phase. Now you've got 2 cards left. One will go to the active player, and one will go to the other player. So the active player draws this one and says, do I want this one, or should I give this one to my opponent? I'm just going to give it to my opponent. So this is played face up in front of the opponent like so. And then finally, the last card the active player has to take, and it ends up being 2 gold here. Now the other players don't see what they actually have. This is actually put face down in front of the active player. After all of that, the players that received cards will go ahead and turn them over and then start forming a hand. Now just to show you that one more time, we're going to act as if this player is the active player. So this player is now going to draw 3 cards. Again, 2 cards, 1 for each player plus 1. So 3 cards face down, and we're going to resolve one at a time. This player draws the first card, looks at it and decides, do I want to give this to the auction pile, do I want to give this to myself, or do I want to give it to the other player? Well, if he was going after the brown color, he may want to hold on to this one. So let's just say that this player wants to hold on to it. He likes what he sees. So he's going to put it face down in front of him like that. He's going to draw the next card. It is a green 1. And he's going to decide, do I want to give this to my opponent, or do I want to give this to the auction pile? It's a very small number. It's just a green 1. And that'll go toward this green die here, but again, it's only 1 point. So he's going to say, okay, I'm going to give this to my opponent. Just put it face up like that. And this last card, no matter what it is, has to go to the auction pile. He'll take a look at it and just observe that, and then put it face down into the auction pile. And then that would end their turn. Alright, now the first phase will continue until the draw pile runs out. Each player will have their own hand of cards. The auction pile will have a nice deck of cards. And you've also got a discard pile here. Again, whenever a player in the game acquires one of these church cards, the action stops and it is resolved immediately. And as you can see here, I've adjusted the dice appropriately. This is just for example purposes, mind you, not actual gameplay. But you've got 4s here, you've got a 1 and a 3. Obviously, you'll want to adjust the dice up or down based on the colors that you have in your hand. If you have a lot of green, for example, you're going to want to bump up this number. Whoever has the most green cards at the end of the game will only receive 1 point. So it's a good idea to try and bump up the colors that you have in the game. Phase 2 is the auction phase. The auction pile becomes the new draw deck, and players will be auctioning the cards from this. The active player will go ahead and draw 1 card, and then the person to the player's left will go ahead and start the auction. If it is a gold card, then the players simply announce how many cards they're willing to discard in order to acquire this. And they'll go back and forth just saying a number until someone actually is the highest bidder, in which case they would win that card. If it is a non-gold card, let's see if I can find one in the deck, here we go. If it is a non-gold card, then players will just announce how much gold they're willing to spend from their hand in order to win this card. Whoever has the highest bid will end up discarding that much gold and will acquire this card. Okay, now that will continue until the auction pile runs out. At that point, players will take a look at their hands to determine who has the most points of a particular color. So each player will go through their hands like so, look to see, okay, how many green do I have? How many orange do I have? How many blue do I have? And so on and so forth. They'll compare values to see who has more. And whoever has the most brown points will end up getting the brown die. Whoever has the most blue points will get the blue die. Whoever has the most green points will get the green die. And so on and so forth. And at the end of the game, whoever has the most points will win. In this case, this player has 10, and this player has 7, so this player would win the game. Alright, and there you have it, a very brief look at Biblios. It's important to stress that I didn't cover all of the rules found in the rulebook, but this should just give you the general idea. As far as what I thought, I think it's a really good game. The card art is fantastic, the dice are nice and large, I like that, you don't have to squint to see them. I have some other games in my collection where the dice are like this small and I can barely read the pips on the die faces, so yeah, I like that. And the game for the most part is... even though there's a lot going on, it plays pretty quickly. Like, the phases are really easy to play out. Again, all you're doing is choosing a card for this pile, and a card for this pile, and a card for that pile. That's it. And each player will do that. Then the auction phase. You draw 1 card, you auction it based on what you have in your hand, and that's it. One thing I didn't go over is that you can actually bluff in this game and drive up the price of a particular card by saying you have more gold than you actually do. But if you get caught and don't have the gold to pay for it, like if you're the highest bidder and you get caught and it comes time for you to pay up to get that card, you'll actually receive a penalty. So there are some subtle strategies in this game, way more than what the ease of play will actually indicate. So if you guys do want to see my full review, you can, www.dadsgamingaddiction.com. If you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube channel. That way you can keep up to date with any new content I happen to publish. This is Vince, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.